Hi there and welcome to the channel, and to this a very special book haul because everything I'm going to show you was purchased using money donated by the viewers through buymeacoffee.com. If anyone else wishes to donate too, the link is in the description. So without further ado, let's begin. So we have here two hardbacks by the cult English writer Anna Kavan, A Charmed Circle and A Stranger Still. Her real name was Helen Emily Woods and her married name was Helen Ferguson, and that's what she published under for a while. But interestingly, she decided to adopt a pseudonym of a character from one of her own novels. It was actually this one. So when you're reading this, there is a fictitious Anna Kavan. Okay, is that clear? So these are very nice. This was published in the 30s, I believe, and this one, Charmed Circle, is an early work from the late 20s, published by Peter Owen. I look forward to reading those. Now, staying with the 30s, we have this hardback, Romantic Moderns. Let me just read you the subtitle. English Writers, Artists and the Imagination, from Virginia Woolf to John Piper. And this really is a perfect book for me. I'm really interested in the 1930s and the intersection of the literary and the visual arts, and so this book is just great, and it's actually signed by the author. I bought this used from Amazon. That's just a bonus. I could always write to the disappointed man inside, I suppose. And it's published by Thames and Hudson, published about 10 years ago, I believe, on very good paper, like all of their books. And it also has a wealth of illustrations, almost 100 of them being in colour. And so I'll just show you one there from a book. Just my luck to find a black and white one, well, a single red letter there. Oh, here we are. Here's a painting. And so the artists included are people like, on the front, John Piper with a view of Dungeness, a nice collage there, Eric Revilius, Graham Sutherland, Eric Borden, and then the literary figures, each of whom seems to own an ancestral pile. So you have Elizabeth Bowen in front of Bowen Court, Henry Green in front of his mansion, Evelyn Ward too. Just about all of these writers seem to have been extremely rich and from illustrious families. There's also Rita Sackville West, who was most closely associated with Knowle, which was visited by, among others, Denton Welch. Can I find another good? Oh, well, I'll show you this. It's a beautiful woodcut. Eric Revilius produced a lot of beautiful woodcuts. This is not by him, actually, but it's also very fetching. Who's that by? I can't see. It's for Gilbert White's book. Gertrude someone. I think the glasses. One moment, please. Gertrude Hermes Stagg. And on the back, it has one of those shell posters. This one is in a kind of divisionist or pointillist style. Doesn't say who it's by, but it is of a place called, Alfriston. All right. Now, the interesting thing about this shell campaign is many excellent artists participated, among them Denton Welch, of course. If you're not realizing why I'm referring to Denton Welch quite so much, he's one of my favorite writers, and he was also an accomplished visual artist. Sadly, he's not included in this book because his period was more the 40s than the 20s and 30s. But when I see this shell poster, he's kind of here in spirit. All right, moving on, we have Mosaic, a memoir by Lincoln Kirstein. Now, if you've not heard of the name, that may not be surprising. If you're into ballet, then perhaps you'll be familiar with him. He was the founder of the New York City Ballet. Here he is in his later years on the back. And I came across him in a volume of John Lehmann's autobiography or memoirs, I Am My Brother. Lehmann was a publisher who had great connections with the leading artists of the day, well, literary artists mostly, Arden, Isherwood. He wrote a book about Isherwood. He wrote a book about his friendship with the Wolves, and I really gained a lot from reading his memoirs. And he mentioned Kirstein because he'd written a novel, I believe, and this made me look him up, and I found a much more intriguing figure than I'd bargained for. And what really grabs me about his life is just how much it was devoted to beautiful things, and he grew up in considerable luxury in the US, and there's just something that really feeds me when I read about this kind of life and the circumstances. It must be great to just have all that luxury surrounding oneself from one's earliest years. And this book is also luxurious. Production, published by Farrar, Strauss and Giroux, who are still very much active. More art now, but we're heading over to Europe, and it is Oskar Kokoschka, whose family hailed from Prague, but falling on hard times, they moved around a considerable amount before settling in Vienna, where he grew up, and he was a close friend of Egon Schiele and Gustav Klimt, and was part of their circle and exhibited alongside them. I guess his style is very much an acquired taste. I personally find it quite arresting. This typeface here is based on one of Kokoschka's own that he produced for a dramatic production that he wrote the script for. So yeah, he did some writing too. An extensive letter writer and memoirist. And the reason I got into Oskar Kokoschka was reading this book on the Bauhaus. And this is really all I know about the Bauhaus is in this book by Nicholas Fox Weber or Weber. It might be a kind of Anglo-German. And it's called the Bauhaus Group. And this has lots of wonderful illustrations. Okay, here are some by Paul Klee. And what it does is it has a very lengthy chapter on 6 of the central figures of the Bauhaus group. And so we start off with the architect, Walter Gropius. I believe he was American-German architect, and he had a very interesting love life. And that's where I came across Kokoschka, who never taught at the Bauhaus, but he had a relationship with Alma Mahler, widow of the composer Gustav Mahler, in between her marrying Walter Gropius. And I think Walter Gropius was off fighting in World War I, while Oskar Kokoschka had his shoes under Alma Mahler's bed. And what happened very interestingly was when Kokoschka broke up with Alma Mahler, he insisted on having a life-size doll of Mahler produced, and he got hold of, Alma Mahler's former dressmaker who knew all of her measurements to undertake the project. And so, wanting to learn more about this truly bizarre episode, I got hold of this biography by Frank Whitford. And there is a short chapter devoted to it, chapter 11, if you're interested. And this book is really beautifully produced too. Let me just read you a little from Kokoschka's letter to the dressmaker. Oh yes, here we are. Oh yes. So he's sending very detailed instructions and drawings all the time. And so here's a letter from 20th of August 1918. Yesterday I sent a life-size drawing of my beloved, and I ask you to copy this most carefully and to transform it into reality with the application of all your patience and feeling. Pay special attention to the dimensions of the head and neck, to the rib cage, the rump and the limbs, and take to heart the contours of body, e.g. the line of the neck to the back, the curve of the belly. I only drew in the second bent leg so that you could see its form from the inside. Otherwise, the entire figure is conceived entirely in profile, so that the major line from the head to the instep of the foot enables you precisely to determine the shape of the body. Please permit my sense of touch to take pleasure in those places where layers of fat or muscle suddenly give way to a sinewy covering of skin. Enough, Oskar. Okay, so a truly weird project. And I have a painting here of the doll. So it's very, very strange. So here's the first one. There's the doll in a very fetching blue dress. And here is Kokoschka with the doll. This is so creepy, isn't it? So my taste for the absurd has been well and truly satisfied by Oskar Kokoschka. Self-portrait of him on the front there looking rather like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, for anyone old enough to remember the British ski jumper who was hopelessly inept. Yeah. Okay. Now, next we move away from art, and one of my passions is the writing of this man, Thomas de Quincey. His Confessions of an English Opium Eater is magnificent, and his The English Mail Coach and De Suspiria from the Depths is really also very good. So I did not know he'd written a novel, and here it is, Klosterheim, or The Masque. And this is a really lovingly produced edition of it by Wildside Books. And I have to show you inside. There's something very funny. They've made the Quincey very frightening by doing this with his eyes. Not terribly frightening, but there we are with an introduction by John Weeks. And I have to say, reading it is something of an indulgence to own this, because it's not really a very good novel. Writing novels was not the Quincey's forte, but there's still sometimes in the passages just that De Quincey magic. And it's set during the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, in some fictitious part of Germany. And I'm not really far into it yet. But for anyone who's mad about De Quincey, may not be aware of this. He also wrote a short story called The Avenger, which I haven't finished reading yet either. But there we are, Klosterheim. Next, this is from Romania, and another one of these lovingly produced editions by a small press. This is Twisted Spoon Press from Romania, and it is Max Blecher, The Illuminated Burrow. And this is an account of his time in hospital, and it's kind of a missing link between Thomas Bernhard's gathering evidence here and, back again to that man, Denton Welch, because Blecher had TB, tuberculosis, which is what Bernhard had, but he lived a very short life. He only made it to about 30 or so, much like Denton Welch. And it is kind of in between Bernhard and Welch when you're reading it. He's not as inward looking as Bernhard, and he's not quite as vivid in his descriptions as Denton Welch, but he does get more into the characters who are alongside him in the hospital. I'll be able to use this in my research. It was recommended to me by someone on the Discord server who sadly has since departed. Well, if you do come back and watch this video, thank you for the recommendation. There are some more books by Blecher that I wish to get, and there's another volume of poetry by Twisted Spoon, so I might get in touch with them and see if they'll supply it. All right, moving on, we have some books that will be useful for my dissertation. So illness narratives. This one, I don't really have much time for the cover here. You know, the syringe with the bouquet, that's rather awful. Conceptual blend there, but I suppose the author doesn't choose the cover. It is Healing, a Memoir When a Nurse Becomes a Patient by Theresa Brown RN, and it's a New York Times best-selling author of The Shift. All right, so these mass market, very popular illness narratives are the ones that I tend to critique for my research project. That's not to say that they're all awful. It's just that there's often a lot to kind of pick apart in here and compare unfavorably with my more preferred illness narratives. But who knows, this could be an absolutely astounding example. You do get the odd exception, so let's not prejudge what is here. Then a more famous illness narrative, and this is by Gillian Rose, who I believe was a professor, a highly educated lady, and she wrote this in her final years. And I did read the opening chapter. She goes off to New York to be with a person she knows, a friend who's dying of HIV, AIDS, and it's all highly serious and highly intellectual. And it has an introduction here by Michael Wood. If you didn't gather, it is by NYRB Classics, possibly my favorite publisher, the most consistent in terms of the quality of their books. Sometimes the print is a little small, but this one is mercifully and nice and large there. So I'm really looking forward to reading that. Two more, for my research, and that is Inside Chronic Pain, and this is by who is it? Louis Heshusius. I'm not sure what the ethnicity would be there. It sounds kind of Greek, but not really. Now, this one is about the publishing industry, which also forms a strand of my research. So it's another one of John B. Thompson's trilogy. And this one is Merchants of Culture. I've got one of the other ones over here. Not sure if I can dig it out in a moment. But it kind of accompanies Mark McGurl's Everything and Less, The Novel in the Age of Amazon. This is also one of the key books for getting into understanding the 21st century publishing environment. And now I will show you some free books that I picked up incidentally as I was collecting these from the office. So in a way, the viewers helped me to get hold of these too. And these are wonderful books. Unmarked, actually. They're just completely clean. Must have been donated by a professor on the poetry. This one of the 19th century. Okay, so I can't identify all of these people from the front, but you can have a look. Got a gallery there of 5 notable French poets. And we also have this one. Sorry, there's 2 volumes and they're both the 19th century. That one was The Romantics, and this one is The Birth of Modern Poetry. So I was really, really stoked, as they say, to get hold of these, and I'll enjoy going through them at my leisure. Now, there is one more amazing thing to show you that I bought with the donations, and it's going to require all my strength to show this, but bear with me. I'm just going to go over there and bring it over, and I might not be able to hold it up very long, but we'll see. All right now. Okay. So, through a friend of a friend, they put me onto these, and it is more or less a complete brand new set of the Arden Shakespeare latest editions. So I'm very much going to enjoy reading those. All right, I'll just sit down with them. I'll show you a few. One of my very favorites here, As You Like It. And it's even got those plays with the doubtful attribution to Shakespeare. I better not move too much, I might knock them all over. King Henry IV, Part 1. So, there we have it. I have to say once again a huge thank you to everyone who contributed, everyone who took the trouble to go over and push some funds my way. Oh, this is great. I've never been able to do this before on the channel. I don't think I'll make it a habit though. Yes, you know, I'm so grateful to be able to show you what I did with those funds, and they really will make a difference to my research. And also it just gives me the chance to not rely on those random purchases that pop up in the used bookstores here, and to target what I want to buy. And that helps me take a chance on some of these books, and also obviously spend a little more on some of these hardbacks and the shipping. And I hope it will benefit the channel, because it's going to allow me to pursue particular directions rather than being at the mercy of fortune. All right, I think I've said all I have to say. Apologies for having been away for another, 9 days or so, but there are so many thunderstorms here in Taiwan at the moment that pretty much every time I start recording, the rain and the wind will start their thing. And because we have lots of people with perspex, corrugated perspex roofs over their balconies, in this block, it makes just an enormous din when the rain is hitting those, and you will not be able to hear me. And I just cannot shout over the top of that. Today, finally, the weather has broken, and that's why I was able to come back. There's nothing other than that going on. Hopefully, the typhoon season will come to an end soon, and I'll be able to return to a full schedule of content creation. Yes. I really have said everything I wish to say now, so that all that remains is for me to bid you farewell in the customary fashion. Be safe, be strong, and I shall see you anon. Nanu nanu.